This is our third fireside chat, but we don't have the fire on because it's 85 degrees out. And we don't want to die of heat exhaustion.
We were actually going to do a fire pit chat this time, and we decided against it because
we didn't think people could hear us outside with
that's
the
why.
wind and train.
So here we are, inside by the fire that's not working.
So Hania just got back from a 12-day silent retreat at the
Vipassana
Center in Sheffield, and
Shelburne Falls. Yep.
Somewhere out west. And we missed her terribly. Myself, her family, all of her friends, and all of her students and people that follow her. And so we were thinking it'd be a really great idea for me to do an interview with her to talk about her experience, what it was like, what lessons she learned, and to really get kind of a deep dive into her experience.
Yeah. Well,
all right, so here is one of our first questions. What prompted you to want to take on this experience, and what were you hoping to get out of this experience?
Good. Okay, here we go. So I think the reason that I've been really I'm studying a lot about Buddhism lately, and I've been studying a lot of meditation work lately, and this method at this center is based on the teachings of the Buddha, of Gautama the Buddha, 25 centuries ago. And it was like a deep dive. It's a course. It was really a course. And it was kind of a deep dive into all of the sort of messages around Buddhism, but also a technique that the Buddha used to get enlightened. So this is kind of why I wanted to dive a little deeper into meditation, but also a little more into understanding Buddhism a little bit more. And I also feel like, anytime you're doing like your work and you're, working hard and you're learning as you go, but there's a point where you feel like you kind of plateau at certain moments. And that happens for me like every week. Like there'll be a week where I'm like, I'm like learning so much and I feel like I'm able to share so much. And then there's weeks where I need a little more. I need more. I need to learn. I need to grow. I need to be uncomfortable. So that was why I feel like everything was going really well, and I was teaching a lot, and things were happening for me with the book, and that was just like, that's been avalanching and in a good way. But I wanted to kind of push it a little bit and learn a little bit more and try something new. And this just called to me. It called to me. But I had put myself on a waiting list for months and months, so I didn't think I would even get it. But then I did. They called me and they said that I was in. And when they said that, my heart dropped. And I was like, I guess I'm going. And that's why I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, you absolutely did. You did. And I remember when you were telling me that you were going to go, you were like, this I think is going to be the hardest thing I've ever done.
Oh, yeah, you know me.
Yeah, because it's like without having the ability to talk and be social and
connect with people and just learn people's stories. And I mean, there were a lot of people with us, and men and women are separated, so I didn't even see the men really at all. But the 40 women, that were together, it was amazing the first night because we were all able to learn about each other and talk with each other. And it was the most diverse group I think I've ever been around. It was beautiful, beautiful. And then Noble Silence began, and that was it. We were not allowed to communicate at all for over 10 days. It was like 10 and a half days probably. Wow. So then it turned into like sort of, no interaction. Yeah. But we were all together all the time.
All the time,
yeah.
Yes.
So.
And actually, we talked a little bit one time about how she said though, but you did feel so connected to people because you were with each other.
Oh my gosh.
All the time. So it was this sort of nonverbal communication and this comfortableness because you've been in such close proximity, meditating, praying, like eating, sleeping, all in the same room for so long that you felt familiar with everyone.
Yeah, in fact, you actually got to know people intimately. Like you actually, when you don't talk, you actually listen a lot more and you actually pay attention a lot more. Your observation becomes much more acute. So I knew who was coming around by just the shoes that were left on next to the door, or the water bottle. We knew everybody's water bottle. We knew everybody's things.
Yeah.
You also knew about how people walked. You could actually feel each person and how their gait was, you know.
Wow.
So you just got really in tune with like listening, but that wasn't the point. It was really not about anybody else around you, and that was the whole point. And at first, noble silence to me was it felt completely wrong and unkind and a little rude, because when you're walking by people, you're not to engage or gesture or anything. And if someone sneezes, you don't say bless you, or if someone opens the door, you don't say thank you. Like all of these things that just seem like basic manners are gone, you know. And I realized probably a couple days into it why we had to do it and why it was necessary. But it was absolutely necessary to do noble silence, and it's the only way you can kind of go in, and it's the only way you can dive into this practice. You have to.
Right, because you would spend probably the whole time just getting to know and feel connected to these 40 women.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
You know me, I would have learned everyone's stories. I would have it would have been, wonderful in a different way.
It would have been a big gigantic sleepover.
I know.
Okay, so my next question is, can you walk us through a typical day and give the rationale for the rules, the structure behind the
So when you arrive there, you have to adhere to the 5 precepts, which are no killing, obviously, but not obviously, because you can't even kill with food. You have to be, it's all vegetarian.
Or insects.
Anything, yeah. So there's no killing, there's no stealing, there's no lying, there's no taking intoxicants, so there's no wine. And then there's also no any kind of sexual anything. So all of these precepts you have to adhere to and promise that you're going to adhere to them the entire time you're there. And it's actually pretty easy to adhere to them because you're in this mode, and it makes sense. I felt like I was in a nunnery. Like I felt like I was at some points I felt like Maria from The Sound of Music. When the gong would happen, I'd be like, "Oh no!" I have to get to the meditation hall. And then also in a weird way, I felt a little bit like Handmaid's Tale, and a little bit like a couple moments where we're all together and we're all interesting personality types, but you can't engage, and there wasn't this so that kind of felt. But it ended up being really a beautiful experience, this noble silence, and it challenged me to my core for sure. Yeah, as you can imagine.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so what part or day?
The day. I didn't talk about the day.
Oh, sorry, yes,
yeah,
the day,
I forgot to say that.
The schedule.
So the schedule was, basically we would get up at 4:30 in the morning, and there would be a person that would gong outside in the hallway, and give you like 15 minutes, then another time. And so you'd hear this gong and you knew that it was time. And you would begin meditating in your room, or you could go into the Dhamma hall and just meditate there. So that's 4:30 to 6:30. Sometimes I have to say I was known to sleep a little bit later on that one, but most people, I think most people, I'm not sure. We don't know. I have no idea. But at 6:30 there was breakfast, and it was a simple breakfast, and then we would go right into the hall and do an hour meditation. And it was, structured so that in the beginning there was a little bit of explaining technique. And it started out, I'm not going to talk about the technique, because if you ever do go, if anybody goes, I want you guys to learn it from the beginning, and I don't want to spoil it, because it builds and it becomes something really special. But in the beginning, it's a certain technique that you learn, and it's all led by S.N. Goenka, Mr. Goenka, and he's passed now, but the whole entire course is taught by him. So I hear his voice in my head all the time. But so the technique is starting to be taught, and then they leave you for an hour in silence in the meditation hall, and it's this huge hall. There's like 80 people, and then there's a woman's teacher and there's a man's teacher, and our teachers were married, and they both sat on the stage. So our entire side were the women, and then the men were separate. But we all sat on our meditation cushion, and everyone kind of customized their cushion their own way, because you were spending a lot of time on this cushion. So we would do an hour of silence, the silent meditation, once he gave the instruction. And then we would take a 5-minute break, and then we go back and do it again, like we do more. And then there would be a break in between for lunch, and then we had it was like an hour or so or whatever, but I would take a little walk in the woods really quickly because I needed to move a little bit because, you know, a lot of sitting. And the first 3 days we had to wear masks, which was really hard to meditate with a mask on for all day. It was really, really hard. And then we all took another test and everyone was negative, so we could take them off, which was helpful. But, so then we'd have lunch and then we'd come back into the meditation hall for the afternoon session, and it would be a similar thing where we would do the hour of instruction for a few minutes, chanting instruction, and then we would spend the hour in silence, and then it would be another 5-minute break and another session. So it would be session, and then we would have a tea break. There was no dinner offered, but we would have a piece of fruit and tea. So it was, that's a whole nother lesson that I learned about like eating and how we eat and all of that. That was I could do a whole talk about that. It was just, I learned a lot about myself, which was good. And then at night it's another session, and then we have a Dharma talk, which was the sort of this talk that he would go into the ideas of why we're doing what we're doing and how we're doing it and what the technique provides and all the information around it. So that was really powerful. And then we would do another meditation and then take a break and another one, and then we would go to sleep really early and then wake up again. So that was kind of our day, and it was like every day, kind of the same thing exactly. So, but the course itself, it kind of built within that structure that it built, and you started learning the technique more in depth as the week went on. So, but it was very challenging, and if you don't meditate for hours and hours a day like me, I do, you know, I have a meditation practice, but it's not hours and hours a day for sure. That was challenging. Just to even sit was challenging, and being able to sit in a position and literally you're not supposed to move. So yeah.
Yes. And one of my other questions was, is your body like in pain?
Yeah. We were like outside of the hall a lot of times doing like stretches. You're not allowed to do yoga. You can't do a formal class. You can't pray. There's no other things involved, but this intense practice. But you can stretch your legs. You can do a down dog, or you can do, like I was doing I was doing movements so I could just stay seated, you know, which is what yoga was kind of meant to, the practice was kind of meant so that you could sit. Now I get it. So that was helpful to do that. And then I had a couple people like following me, and we weren't allowed to talk, but they were like, I followed everything you did, and I could see them doing it with me. So they must have been like, oh, she's a teacher or whatever, so I'm going to follow what she's doing, because, you know, we all had similar aches and pains.
Yes. So during those 5-minute breaks, you were allowed to do those
5-minute breaks. It would be like everyone would let loose into the outside, and it would be like all of us walking into the outside. And of course, everyone's dressed in very modest dress. So, you know, I can't wear this. Like, I can't wear this top. Like, I would have to wear, you know, like it's covered and modest. And you guys know me. I wear like fitted and this and that. None of my clothes worked. Like, I had to like.
But she did get in trouble a little bit of trouble for showing. Would you show your belly?
I think I was like, I hid behind a rhododendron bush one lunch break just to get a little sun, and yeah. Someone was like, yeah, the older lady told me that she broke her silence just to tell me not to sunbathe.
She was breaking the rules. Breaking the rules.
Yeah, just once.
Okay, so my question was, I can imagine being alone with my mind and having so much suffering. How are you able to move through this pain and be present in the moment?
How was I able to move through that pain? Oh, gosh. Well, this is the practice, and a lot of it has to do with, and again, I don't want to talk about the technique, but the technique has a lot to do with how you move through pain. And the technique has to do with finding equanimity and non-reactivity to what's happening.
Right.
So that's a big part of the practice. So I just dived into the practice itself and the technique, and it helped. And I was able to stay beyond how comfortable I was, because it was not comfortable for a lot of the time. But yeah, I think just the power of the mind is much more powerful than we know. And there's an unconscious mind that we dive into in this practice. It's like a deep conditioning stuff. and we're able to like get into that level of the brain, of the mind, and like be able to change kind of patterns, like these old patterns, you know, samskaras they call it, like these patterns of reactivity that we constantly do. We react the same way physically when things happen to us, and so that reactivity kind of, you learn how to manage that, and that's the beauty, because if we can do that on the seat in an uncomfortable place, then hopefully we can take that off of the cushion and into the world, which is just what we do in yoga. You know, it's the idea of bringing our practice with us when we are driving in the car, and when we're with our friends, or when we're with our colleagues, or when we're with our family, and things can get tough, you know, and then that's when we bring it in. We bring in the practice, and that's why we do it. And, you know, Buddha, it wasn't like things weren't upsetting him. It's just that there was this way of managing it, you know.
Right, yes.
So it's a powerful way to manage.
Everything being thrown at you, and then being able, like, all the suffering that you could have, because you're just sitting there with yourself
and
your
we're
mind.
creating the stuff. We're creating a lot of the suffering. That's the thing too. You realize that, like, wow, you're adding a lot to your own suffering. Like, I didn't realize how much I was adding to my own suffering, and then I realized during these days, like, I add a lot of suffering to myself just by my own thought patterns that have been sort of ingrained for years and years and years. And this is like a breaking free of those bondages, of those old patterns. And when we do that, it's like, whew, like, wow, I feel lighter. Wow, I don't have to hold this anymore. Wow, I don't need to carry this really hard feeling with me and let it stick, you know? Like, we can actually physically change the body to physically change the mind and the reactions so that we don't respond that way. So it's powerful stuff. You know?
She's a Jedi Knight right now. She went to Jedi training. Be careful, bad side. Oh my God. Do you feel differently than you did before the retreat?
I feel like yes. The answer is yes. Yeah. I learned a lot about myself, and I also feel differently in the sense that when I was there, a lot of stuff comes up for you. So when you're in a place that's really deeply challenging you, things come up for you. And for me, there were these random things that came up that apparently I hadn't dealt with, that just kept coming up. And there were some of them were small, silly things, like a regret that I might have had, you know, about not doing something when I was in my 20s or 30s, you know, or something small or whatever, but it would keep coming to the surface. And I started realizing, like, I need to deal with this. Like, there's something here, there's something deeper, even though it seems like a superficial thing, there's something rooted in this, and I have to sort it out. So I did a lot of, like, my own personal reflections while I was going through this, and was able to truly move through some of the stuff in my past, like, that I didn't even know was there. So that was really cool. Because I had to work throughout the whole week to get there. And even the smallest things end up being like, there's bigger reasons why they're lingering around and sticking around in your brain, in the back of your subconscious. So, yeah.
And they kind of come out sideways.
All over the place.
And in being in this kind of setting where you have nothing else but you and your mind.
Yeah. There's no writing, there's no journaling, there's no reading, there's no stimulus of any kind. So it's you and yourself. So when I was outside with this beautiful place, I would see everybody would just walk around and look at a plant for like literally a half an hour and be like, wow. And just stare and it was not unusual to see someone just staring at a plant for like an hour, you know? And you just get really, really accustomed to being perceptive and learning and finding things to be that are much more interesting than you thought they were. Yeah. And I watched like hummingbirds, like I watched bumblebees. I can tell you how the bumblebee first approaches the flower, how the back of the bumblebee moves, and then, you know, I literally watched bumblebees for like, I don't know, a whole half of a day, like one day, like every time I had a break, I would go out and watch the bumblebees on the different trees. Like, there were so many beautiful trees, and yeah, it was just cool. There was these flowering trees, and the bumblebees would just go from one flower to the next, and that would be my entertainment for my break, you know.
Yeah, but it's also being present, right?
Yeah.
And it's not listening to the chatter in your head. It's being able to be present with whatever in the moment, right?
Yeah, whatever's right in front of you.
That's
things
awesome.
that we don't even pay attention to, you know, like, you know, I became like friends with the ants and the bunnies, and yeah, it's like you know, you need a friend.
You
I
do.
was like, I need, like, you're my friend today.
What was reentry like?
Oh yeah. So okay, so there was a few days that were really really hard, and it was hard. And I mean, this is relatively speaking. I'm not in a war zone. I'm not. You know, we're talking about relatively speaking here, but hard meaning like the time went really really slowly. The days were really long, and every day I would take a stone from my walk in the woods, and I would put it on the ledge of my next to my bed. And so every day I would take like the perfect stone. I mean, it took me a long time to pick the stone. That's how, you know, how much time I had. And I would put it on the ledge, and it would be like, okay, there's one, there's day one, there's day two, you know, there's day. So every day I would say, I got through today. I got through this hour. I got through, you know, so it was just this constant, like being able to get through the next, you know, like I got through today, you know, so some of the days were really hard and long. And some of the days there were moments where I was there and I was like, I can't imagine leaving. This is heaven in some ways, because it's beautiful, and I was eating so healthy and feeling so good physically, and very clean, just felt really peaceful, and all these people around are joyful people, you know, even though they're in their own worlds. I felt connected in some way, you know, with their energies. So
Yeah, and you're having the same experience, but just within yourself, right?
Yeah. Re-entry.
Yes, re-entry.
I keep going off on
No,
tangents.
that's okay.
So re-entry was, well, first of all, they're very smart in the sense that at the end of the 10 days, they release noble silence before you go out into the world. Because if you were to go from noble silence into like, okay, goodbye, then it would have been really jarring, because you really do change your perception and everything around you. And also, it was a time for us to connect with each other. And so as soon as they said, okay, and now noble silence is released, we walked out of the meditation hall, and we all looked at each other like, is it okay? Can I smile at you now? And I remember turning to the woman next to me, and I went, hi. And we were both like, hi. And then it was kind of like, and then we ended up like all just really connecting, like intense connection quickly.
Yeah.
And you should have seen the difference between the dining hall of the women and the dining hall of the men. The dining hall of the women was like, like everyone was like connecting and loving and hugging and all of this personality, and the men were like, what's up? It was just very chill, very different. It was just funny to see the difference, but there were some really incredible women that I got to know, like at the end, and we felt like we knew each other. There was one woman at the beginning who was an old student who had been there multiple times, and she even said, she goes, you're going to start to read people's minds by the end of this week. And she was right. Like, I could tell what people were thinking. And then when we all talked, I was like, I knew you were thinking that. I knew this is like... So, yeah.
Because you're so observant.
You're so in tune with each other, but you're not. You know, you have to have that separation. You're in tune with yourself. Mm-hmm. But you still know what's going on around you, you know, and you can feel when people walk by you what they're going through, and, you know, you can feel it.
Yeah.
So that was a nice little buffer. And then I got in my car and I was like, I can leave. This is so weird. And I was like, I need to see something beautiful. I don't want to go home just yet. And so I went to this place called Bridge of Flowers in Shelburne Falls. And if you can ever go there, it's just so pretty. There's a bridge in the middle of this adorable, quaint little village. And it's all flowers along the bridge, and there's a pathway in the middle. And so I just wanted to like walk in this, and there were families on the bridge and all different people. And I just felt very free, and I felt very like, I was like feeling like I was glowing. I feel like I was smiling at everybody. Like, so it was just, and then I was driving home and listening to music for the first time, and it was a beautiful day. And I just felt like this is like, I'm so grateful for everything. I'm so grateful for everything. I'm grateful for, you know, I FaceTimed my family, and I was like, I love you all, you know, like, cause I hadn't had any contact, zero with anybody. So that was really powerful. And then, before the retreat, I was like, okay, we're all meeting for drinks on Sunday when I get back. And when I got back, I was like, there's no way I can even have a sip of alcohol right now. Like, I can't even like be around a whole group of people right now. Like, it was too...
You need a slower
transition. And then the first time I went to go teach a class, there were so many people at the place when they walk in Lifetime, and it was like so bustling. And I was like, oh my gosh, look at all these people. So I had to like, it took a little while. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd say you still are
I know.
acclimating.
Still not like 100%. I'm not, yeah. But you know what? I'm going to take some of that and keep it. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I feel like there's a level of calm in me now that I feel like is enjoy that I think I was sped up too fast before to feel it. So.
And I was saying to Hania when I spent time with her on Monday night, and that was just yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time with her, and I said to her, it's almost like, I was saying soften, but I actually think it's more open, even though she is totally always very open, but even more so.
Yeah.
You open even more.
Yeah.
And so that's really, it's
Maybe
really
because
cool.
also feeling like you release stuff from your past that lets you feel freer, lets you be more open, lets you be more, less guarded or less whatever it is that we hold back in the bondages that hold us back, that we don't even realize that we have within us.
You just opened up some space,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
To be even more open.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, what you were saying about being grateful, and I was thinking, you know, I remember listening to Dalai Lama say one time that if you're even having a question about these sort of topics, like how lucky are you? Because so many people in the world, that's not what they're thinking. They're thinking, how am I going to feed my family? How am I going to survive this night?
Yeah.
So even if you are just a person that has just a contemplation, like you're lucky, and to feel how grateful to be able to spend with amazing teachers and all people with the same idea, and then, you know, being true to Hania, she would, you know, she's going to want to then spread it to as many people as she can through her teachings, her video, books. And so I feel grateful that you got to go.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I feel grateful to you for watching Marley over here and watching my children and for part of it. And
very tired.
Oh my gosh, a lot, you know, so you helped a lot and a lot of people helped. So that it couldn't happen if you didn't have a village around you to like be able to leave your life for 12 days. Like, it's a lot, you know. My husband had to go on tour and had to bring the kids with him for a few days. Like, so, you know, there was a lot of coordination and things to get there. So it was not easy. It's not easy, you know, to leave your life.
But you felt like it was important.
I had to do
and
it.
it wasn't
I
like you
had
were going
to.
in the hot tub.
No.
You were going.
No, I was going down into like this nunnery.
The depths of your own mind, which is so hard.
Yeah, it was hard. It's hard. Yeah.
Proud.
Thank you.
Proud.
Goodness.
Okay, so my other question was, we kind of talked about that you were able to connect with people even though you weren't.
Yeah, but honestly, like during the week, you're really focused on yourself. Like it's a really introspective thing. But at the end, that's when the joy can come out and you can start to, you can be open with others.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was.
And you've all done this training of being open, so that's why it must have been so that immediate to connect so quickly.
I bet I Facebook friended a couple people, so maybe I didn't even tell them that I was doing this. So I'm sure, is Aga there or any of the girls? Like, I would love to hear from you guys. But there was an amazing crew of people. Melissa, like, there's all these cool people that I got to meet and know. So yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
All right, here's our last question. So, what was one lesson that you learned and internalized and you'd like to share with others?
Yeah, okay. That one is a hard one because there were a lot of lessons that I learned from the teacher. Like this teacher, Mr. Goenka, is like amazing. And someone it's always gonna be my teacher, like just forever. So there's a lot of lessons within the studies and the scriptures and the things that we were learning that I'm going to have with me and bring with me. But for me personally, I say it in class all the time, and I say like you can get through one breath anything one breath at a time. I say that all the time. But in this instance, like when the days are really, really long and you feel like it's really unending, I remember feeling like I want this day to end. This is too much and too slow, and I can't do this anymore. There were a couple moments like that, and I remember thinking, that's because I'm craving the end of this, and I want this to be over. And that craving is my suffering. Like, I am here. I'm going to be here. There's nothing else I can do about it. So there's a point where you let go of the craving and just turn back into the moment and say, I'm here now. And if I try to will this away, it's going to cause suffering. And if I try to hold on to something in the past, it's going to cause suffering. So right here, right now, I have my breath and I'm okay. And I'm just going to be here in my breath. And so I think just knowing that you really can get through even like the things that are your mind wants to make you quit, you know, because that's how we go. That's where we go. You could also train your mind to say, I'm here right now. And this is enough. This is enough right here. And the more I crave something else beyond right now, the more I suffer and the more misery comes to me. So so just being okay where you are and being like, you're enough, you're here, you know, right here is enough. So don't crave what's next or what's in the past, you know, or don't even avoid what's in the past. Be right here, you know. So again, another reminder of being in this moment, and just in this moment, you have equanimity. You're okay right here, right? So that's the power. I'm going to keep bringing that in. And I feel like I developed that a little bit more. So now I feel like I have this, like, I'm like, okay, just try me. Like I'm going to be able to be okay. I know that I have these tools now that are going to help me through whatever's going on. And I just want to be able to share them. So already I talked about time in classes today. And I talked about how, accepting what is as it is right here, not how you want it to be and not how it seems to be, but as it is. So that's kind of the goal. That's the work.
And even recognizing you're having I feel like it takes first the awareness, like why am I having these cravings? Why can't I just be happy with one of my best friends in a beautiful day, sitting and talking about things that I'd love to talk about? Why do I have to create my suffering myself? So it's like awareness, but then being able to be in the hard place of like, you can move through it, right? So I feel like you are the Jedi Master.
I wouldn't say that. I know. I mean, there were a lot of people that did this and this program is not for the light of heart. I would absolutely recommend it to everybody, but I wouldn't recommend a shorter version of it. Like there are some 3-day but the 10 days is really, I think, necessary for this technique to be able to really manifest this technique. I had a couple really insane incidents. Like I don't even want to talk about that, but they were like out of body stuff happening in a couple sessions for me. And I can talk to you guys about it some other time, but it was super powerful. But that's not the norm when you do the meditation work. But I did go there. I went as farther than I thought I could go. And then I realized that our brain is really, that unconscious brain is not tapped in enough. There's stuff to do. We can get there.
Yeah.
So and change some of those old patterns and behaviors from the deeper level. So that's kind of cool.
And that's like sowing the seeds of happiness.
Yeah.
How do we do that? We know what's going to make us suffer.
Yeah.
And then we know what's going to bring us happiness.
Yeah, but happiness was tricky because you don't want happiness. We think of joy, we're excited, we're happy, but that also can cause misery. So, because that's not something you can hold on to. So that becomes craving. After a while, I want to crave that happiness. I want to crave that joy. I want to crave that. So that craving ends up being suffering eventually. So the highs, the lows, they're all suffering on either end. The balance in the middle, that being able to have that equanimous mind is where we want to work towards, so that we have a little bit more peace. We have a little more contentment within. And that can happen. Just with a little bit of work, So I'm looking forward to keeping the practice up and being much more. They're like an hour in the morning, an hour at night. That's what we have to do when we leave. And I've already started it. I'm trying. I'm going to do my best, but that I am going to go and serve there, maybe next year. We'll see. So,
awesome.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm happy. There's a lot of messages that I learned over this past week that you'll be hearing in classes and stuff, because I've got so much stuff I can't wait to share with all of you, because I love you all. So.
Yeah. And we're so proud of you.
No, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity and thankful for everybody were able to let me go. So, yay. So thank you. All right. Bye, guys. We'll see you on the next Fireside Chat.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be winter. We'll see. Okay. Ooh, as I fall over. All right. Bye.